So next we have one of our producers, actually. He's our backup producer to Phil. Everybody, I think, knows Pat Rivard. Pat, you're up.
Okay, tonight I'm going to present my building of the concrete toll tower in O scale. This model was based on a Suncoast kit, which is no longer in business. Includes plastic parts and wooden shapes representing the structures that serviced steam engines in the 50s and 60s. The assembly process was complex, involving mitered corners and so it would mimic poured cement. Additional windows were added from Grant Line and were given to the tower as well as to the sides of the main structure. The stairs were rebuilt with custom railings made from wire and plastic shapes, and a jig was used for their assembly. Lighting was installed above the doors and below the loading area. LED or LED fishing weights were employed to create weights for the chutes, which were scratch built from plastic and designed to operate with chains running through freely turning pulleys. For the unloading area, a structure was built using plastic tubing to resemble a grate for catching dumped coal. The roof was covered with plastic sheeting and ribbed with square plastic to imitate standing seam steel roofing. The primary base color was applied using a light gray Krylon spray was weathered with powders to mimic black soot. Oh, this was the fun part, boy. I'll tell you. I opened that box, pulled out my Kleenex, and cried for about a half an hour when I took a look at all that stuff. What a nightmare. As you can see, it was a lot of plastic and a lot of wood. I wondered why I did this 10 years ago, but I did it anyway. One thing I did enjoy much was the plans that they gave you were for full size, which was quite helpful when it came to building this outfit. Otherwise, you could not do it. It would be just impossible. All that plastic was glued onto sheets of plastic. There's the side with a view of the stairwell that would go in the side of it. And you can see the wood in the center of the plastic shapes that were put around for the pillars that held up the cooling tower. And all the corners that on this, I mitered so they would fit tightly, so to make it look like a poured cement. At that time, we didn't have all the fancy stuff we have now for doing 3D printing. This is the building of the side tower. It was one large structure made up of two sheets. One, the upper structure was glued to this part, and then the seam was covered with a special plastic strip. When I glued this together, I used mostly crazy glue, which was Loctite. I added the windows to the structure, and I added a few extra windows on the backside of the structure as well. There's another view. As you can see, I did some of the weathering with a darker gray finish on there. So I thought I'd lay it down on top of the track and have a look at what I was going to do. See how it would fit on the layout, how it would look. The first paint job before weathering. That's what I did. It was sprayed with this Krylon. There's the bottom view. You can see the slanted part of the under part of the body of the coaling tower. Of course, your coal would flow down into the chutes at that. And then the inside, excuse me, was painted black, so you wouldn't see anything inside other than just a black view, a dark view. On this coaling tower, I did add windows on each end of it. They weren't there originally. There I placed it over the track after I had it all done, just to see what it would look like. And it had the right amount of space on each side of the track. And you'll look right here, there's a tube running down the side of one of the pillars. That's where I ran the wiring up into the cooling tower to put the lights in the bottom of it. This thing didn't have lights, and everything I build, I put lights on if I can. And there's where I assembled the stairs. I had plans to go by, which I was able to use plastic parts for the main base of the the landings. But I also used Florist wire through square tubing that I capped off the top of the square tubing with some plastic channels. There it is with some more weathering. This thing is bloody huge. And there's the chutes that I built, and I taped them all to prepare them for painting. As you can see, the joints are well covered up, so it looks like it's poured cement. It's very difficult to do, and in some cases they suggest you use a body filler or some sort of plastic body filler. Some even said you can use stipple, which is like a plaster base. And if you put it on there, you can sand it off very smoothly. And once you give it a couple of coats of paint, it'll disappear. You won't see the joints. There's a picture of it with the plans in the background. And it's well weathered with rust coming from the platforms and the stairs. The roof is on, but there's no roof on and windows at the top yet. And you can see one of the lights up here. I also added a door at the bottom. It wasn't on there when you had the kit built. There's a side view, more weathering. And if you actually saw a concrete cooling tower, they're the dirtiest thing I ever saw in my life. I was down in, I forget where it was. Anyway, I saw one of these cooling towers and it was dirtier than this thing.
Thurman, maybe?
Yes, yes. They're exactly like the one in Thurman. There you can see I had the chutes ready to be added on the part that I scratch built for loading the cars with. And then I had the lights installed. That's why that tubing goes up the side of this pillar here, and you can see the top part of it up here. And then I had the wiring go down to the lights underneath the unit and on the side of the unit. There's a placing it over the main track coming into the engine yard. If you look down at the bottom here, you'll see where I scratch built the grates for unloading. And the roof, I also added a black spray bomb, a black, flat black, and then I rusted it all. And there's that door that I was talking about that I added to it. And the light above it. Now the stairs themselves, I scratch built those. I made a jig so that I could scratch build the stairway itself, and then I added the railings on the side with more wire through the sides of it. You can see the wires right there. There's a view when I just put it in place. And the sanding tower in front of it. And you can see where I put the engine house right here. And the coal pit or dumping pit for firebox, they call it, dumping pit. There's a good view of the mechanisms that work the coal chutes. I use the fine chain down through the lead weights that you use for fishing, round ones. What they applied or had put in the kit would no way work the chutes if you wanted to. And I had to scratch build these pulleys so that the things would turn. So I ran a wire through here and put a cap on the ends of each one of each side. Then I used nut and bolt castings for the back part. And they actually go up and down, and they will stay where you put them after you raise them or lower them. Every once in a while you get them tangled up. There's another view. I compared it to the plans just to get an idea if I was anywhere close to what I wanted. And the face-on view. And there's a night view. I like night scenes. They seem to bring out the character of the building. And you can see all the lights around the yard. Everything adds to the structure itself. Thank you. That was a short, quick, sweet, and 12-year-old video.
Let me ask you a few questions regarding the build.
Yes,
Approximately how long did it take you to make the coal tower?
that coal tower, about a week.
Oh, it's not bad at all. You must have.
If you spend 8 hours a day,
And,
you don't do that when you're in model railroading. You and I both know that.
and what were the takeaways? I mean, you basically did a kit bash, I would say.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I was a kid, and I just what I liked about it was the plans were the best part of the whole building. They had done a very good job of making good size plans that matched what you were building. So it was easy enough to place what you were doing on top of it to see if you're following the rules that they had set aside to build this thing. So it helped a lot in that case. And it means a lot. If you get good plans in a kit, you're in good shape. But if you don't, it's going to be a guessing game, especially in this particular model, especially when it comes to the stairs and landings and all that other stuff.
Let's talk about how you got the concrete look about it. So
Well, the Krylon spray at that time was a very close. I tried to get it as close as I could by weathering it. I actually sprayed that model twice. The first time I sprayed it, it didn't look right, so I sprayed it again with a different shade of gray. And then on top of that, I used actual Floquo rust, which was thinned down quite a bit, and then dry brushed onto the building itself. At that time, they didn't have all these fancy pastel, whatever it was. I applied some later, but at the time they didn't have that, so I had to use rust from Floquo when they were in business,
Yeah.
and it made a very good job of making it look rusty.
And I'm guessing that's a tall.
Pardon me, I missed it.
How tall? Oh, I don't have my microphone on. How
Yeah,
tall?
you're okay.
How
So
tall is the structure?
I would say the structure was about, I'd say 16 to 18 inches high.
Okay.
One of the tallest buildings on my layout. It is the tallest building. So when you were working with it, you had something hefty to work with.
And those lights you put on are incandescent or LED?
LED.
There
That
you
was
go.
the first time I started buying LED lights online. And I wish I had done it when I first started building the city scene, because I have a lot of incandescent type lights in those, and that you have a tendency to burn out on you, and then you have a heck of a time trying to get them out. LEDs last a lot longer and a lot easier to put in.
And what would you say is the most, what was the most difficult thing about the kit or the build? It wasn't a kit. The
The
most
build
difficult.
itself,
Yeah.
uh, I would say making that plastic look like one piece of poured concrete. That was very difficult, very hard to figure out how to make it, the sanding and the finishing. What I did, I would sometimes add a little bit of glue into the seam. When
Yeah.
I sanded it, it would fill it in automatically, and it would just make a nice smooth finish. That was the most difficult part of the whole building. And then, of course, the stairway and the landings were not simple either. There was quite a bit of a challenge.
On the concrete, did you put in the casting lines or is it completely smooth or how'd you do that? Are there any like horizontal sandings or anything? Is it smooth or how'd you, what was the texture like on that thing?
It's smooth.
Okay.
It is smooth. I didn't try and make it look like rough concrete. Of course, when you put the rust on, it makes it a little bit rougher than you would normally get. But it added to the texture by adding that rust.
You have the large engine house you built. You know, you have this coaling tower. Would you say this is one of the key structures on, everybody sees this when they walk in the room. It's one of those structures, if you will.
You don't see it at all until you go around the mountain.
Ah,
That mountain in the background,
yeah.
right there, you can't see this thing. And you have to walk around. It's like there's two different scenes in that layout. When you first come in the room, you'll see the city and then the mountain and a whole bunch of trees. And then after that, you go around the mountain in the layout room, and there it is. There's the engine yard.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then if you look to the right of the engine yard, you'll see the lumber yard. So it's all another scene itself. There's three different scenes in this layout. One's the engine yard and all is involved in the engine yard. Then you have um, your planer mill and sawmill on the other side of that tower. And then on the other side of the mountain, you have a full city scene. And every one of these scenes has a sound system.
Oh, yeah. Which
I
we,
love it. I love the sound systems.
well, you know,
Some night I'm going to play one of the running train running around this layout with the sound systems in the background. It doesn't overwhelm it, but you can hear them.
well, thanks to our Jeff Jordan, he has me hooked on these
Yeah.
record your own. I don't know if
Yep.
you've experimented with that, but that's uh, that's another dimension to model railroading, adding the sound, that's for sure. I mean,
It sure.
we've had it for locomotives for a long time, but to have individual sounds for individual industries is something quite different. Yeah.
It adds a dimension that you can't imagine it until you put it in
Yeah.
place. When I
I'm a,
first turned it on, I said, I wish I'd have done this sooner.
and it was you that got me on N engineering to do the,
Yes.
and,
Yes. That's what I use.
then Jeff Jordan with the other systems,
Hmm.
Walmart. Well, thank you. I'm glad we finally coerced you into doing this. For
The next
addition
one will be different.
for additional details
Thank you.
and more in depth, this will be the feature article in the September 25 edition of New Tracks Modeler magazine coming out in 2 weeks. So if you're not a subscriber, go on
Please
our
subscribe.
website. Yeah, go on our website. The like everything we do, it's free, but we're looking for donations. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep, thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you.